Martell Holt. Some saw him as confident, charming, and focused, while others believed he was stubborn, reckless, and surrounded by drama. Anyone who watched Love and Marriage Huntsville likely felt they understood him, a man who had everything but still managed to lose it all. But now, something feels different. At 43, after years of headlines, arguments, broken trust, and public embarrassment, Martell is speaking in a way we haven't seen before. He's calmer, more honest, and no longer trying to prove anything. What he's revealing goes deeper than the cheating rumors, the divorce, or the public backlash. It changes how we understand everything that went wrong. Because maybe the drama people saw was never the real issue. Maybe it was only the surface. Beneath all the anger and mistakes was something much more personal, something he had been hiding even from himself, and now he's finally ready to face it. To understand this shift, it helps to go back to before the fame and cameras. Before everything, Martell was simply a man trying to build a meaningful life. Like many others, he wanted success, stability, and purpose. When he met Melody Shari, it seemed like everything fell into place. They weren't just a couple, they were partners who built businesses, shared goals, and created a life that looked perfect from the outside. People admired them as a strong, ambitious power couple, and for a while, it truly worked. But behind the scenes, pressure was building. For Martell, success wasn't just about achievement, it was about proving he was enough. That pressure came from expectations that a man should always be strong, in control, and never vulnerable. So he created that version of himself, confident, dominant, unshakable. But now he admits that version wasn't real. It was a mask. Beneath it was fear. Fear of failure, fear of losing everything, and fear of being exposed. Instead of facing those emotions, he hid them. As their lives became more public, the pressure only intensified. Being seen as perfect became a role he felt trapped in, and slowly things began to shift. At first, it was small issues, stress, disagreements, communication problems. But underneath, deeper emotions were growing. Frustration, resentment, and a need for control started to take over. When someone feels out of control internally, they often try to control everything around them, and that's what began to happen. By the time the cameras for Love and Marriage Huntsville entered their lives, the foundation was already fragile. Instead of slowing down, everything sped up. Every argument became public, every mistake had an audience. Rather than facing the truth, Martell leaned further into his image of strength and control. But the more he tried to protect that image, the more damage he caused. Eventually, it all reached a breaking point through choices that changed everything. The affair, the lies, and the arguments that played out in front of millions. At first, people thought the situation was simple. A man cheated, a marriage ended, and a woman walked away. But Martell now says it wasn't that simple. For him, the cheating wasn't just about desire, it was about escape. Escape from pressure, expectations, and the version of himself he didn't know how to fix. Once that escape became a habit, everything began to fall apart. The arguments grew louder, trust disappeared, and the connection between him and Melody faded. What made it worse was how public it all became, with people taking sides and judging every moment. Instead of stepping back and taking responsibility, he defended himself, argued, and blamed others. Because facing the truth meant facing himself, something he wasn't ready to do. From the outside, it looked like ego and pride. But now he says it was fear. Fear of being seen without the mask and judged for who he truly was. Eventually, everything caught up with him. The divorce wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the collapse of his entire life as he knew it, the image, the family, and the control he thought he had. For the first time, he was left alone with the truth. In those quiet moments, without cameras or distractions, he began to reflect. He noticed the silence, the distance from his children, and the weight of his actions. He stopped seeing himself as a public figure and started seeing himself as a father who had hurt the people he loved. That realization changed something inside him, not loudly or dramatically, but quietly and honestly. He stopped making excuses and began asking himself a question he had avoided for years. Why did he become this version of himself? The answers weren't easy. He admits he had been living in survival mode, constantly trying to prove himself and avoid vulnerability. But in doing so, he never healed. Everything he built was standing on unstable ground. Now he speaks openly about the guilt he feels, especially when it comes to his children, and how their experience forced him to rethink responsibility. He also views Melody differently, not with anger, but with understanding. He acknowledges that she didn't leave because she didn't care. She left because she had to, because staying would have meant carrying a burden that wasn't hers. And he also reflects on public criticism, admitting that while it was painful, some of it was true, and accepting that truth became part of his growth. Today, Martell says he's not perfect and not fully healed, but he is aware of his mistakes, his patterns, and the work he still needs to do. For the first time, he seems willing to face it. This isn't about clearing his name or rewriting the past, it's about honesty. At 43, Martell Holt is no longer trying to prove he was right. He's finally acknowledging where he went wrong, and that changes everything. Because in the end, this story isn't just about drama or reality TV drama. It's about self-realization. It's about the moment a person stops running and finally faces themselves. Real growth doesn't begin when life is perfect. It begins when you stop lying to yourself. And for Martell, that moment is happening now. That realization doesn't instantly fix everything, and Martell himself admits that. Understanding your mistakes is one thing, but rebuilding trust, repairing relationships, and changing long-standing patterns is something much harder and slower. There are no shortcuts to undo years of pain, especially when it has affected not just a marriage, but children, family dynamics, and public perception. He knows that some things cannot be taken back, no matter how much clarity you gain later. What he can do now, however, is move differently. Instead of reacting emotionally or trying to control the narrative, he talks about slowing down and thinking before responding. Instead of blaming others, he's learning to sit with responsibility, even when it feels uncomfortable. It's not about becoming a different person overnight, but about gradually breaking old habits that once felt like protection but actually caused harm. Even with this shift, the past still follows him. Public opinion doesn't change quickly, and many people still view him through everything that happened before. He understands that trust is not something you demand back, it's something you rebuild through consistency over time. That means showing growth not just in words, but in actions that remain steady even when no one's watching. At the same time, he reflects more deeply on what he lost along the way. It's not just about a marriage that ended or a public image that shifted, but about moments with his children, peace within his home, and the simplicity of a life without constant conflict. These are the things he now values differently, things he admits he once overlooked while chasing validation and control. As for Melody Shari, his perspective has also matured. Instead of seeing the relationship only through conflict, he now recognizes the emotional weight both of them carried. He accepts that two people can both be hurt, both be overwhelmed, and both contribute to the breakdown in different ways. That understanding doesn't erase what happened, but it brings a more grounded view of their story. Moving forward, Martell describes his journey as ongoing rather than complete. There is no final moment where everything is perfectly healed. Instead, it's a daily effort, learning, adjusting, and holding himself accountable when old patterns try to return. Some days are better than others, but the difference now is awareness. He can see himself more clearly than before, and that clarity, even if painful, is what keeps him from going back to who he used to be. In the end, his story is no longer just about controversy or reality TV drama. It becomes a reminder that people are often more complicated than the versions of them seen on screens or social media. Behind every public mistake is usually a private struggle that